In front of a sparse crowd, the Pittsburgh Penguins gave up a goal on the first shot for the sixth time in 22 games. They lose to the Winnipeg Jets 4-1. I am Dan Kingerski on the Pittsburgh Hockey Now YouTube channel. We'll make this available as a podcast as well. Where do you begin with a team that seems to be losing heart? Not the young players, but the veterans. Where do you go with a team that had 2 days of intense practices, physical practices, and promptly came out on the ice largely disinterested? Not quite flat, but certainly not energetic. You saw the Pittsburgh Penguins lose 4-1 to the Winnipeg Jets, but you also saw them. They needed Sidney Crosby to drop the gloves at the start of the third period. Crosby had enough. Not with the Winnipeg Jets. I mean, he fought Kyle Connor, and Connor really didn't commit any offense so egregious as to warrant dropping the gloves. But Crosby went for it anyway, as much or more to spark his team that badly needed it. The Penguins had just 12. I think they knocked it down to 12. It was either 12 or 13 shots, 13 originally, in the first 40 minutes. You can say they were outclassed or outmatched against the Winnipeg Jets, but the reality was they didn't bring it. Coach Mike Sullivan said, we didn't hang on to pucks down low. We weren't fighting for good ice. We could go into the defensive zone malaise as well. In giving up that goal in the first minute of the game, it was just one of those mind-bending moments when Evgeny Malkin and Erik Karlsson couldn't have played it any worse. It wasn't like they made mistakes in gifting Nino Niederreiter a puck in front of the Penguins' net with acres of space. It wasn't that they made a mistake or it was a simple miscommunication. It was one kind of swatting it to the other who sort of swatted it back, and neither showed the urgency or care or interest in front of their own net. That's where this team truly has a problem. And I don't know what else to tell you about that, because it's the veterans. Coach Mike Sullivan giving Vasily Ponomarev, Sam Poulin, and Owen Pickering full ice time on Friday against Winnipeg. He's sheltering Pickering a little bit, but still giving the kid a chance to grow in some important situations. Pickering is responding quite well. Ponomarev making some mistakes. He's not played very well yet, but his ice time is increasing. Sam Poulin got a little earful at one point during the game from Sullivan, but still played more than 10 minutes. The Penguins did have to shorten their bench because, well, they were down 3-0. So obviously the Stars played quite a bit in the third period. There was no line. There was no Penguins line except for the Drew O'Connor with Jesse Puljujärvi and Sam Poulin that had an even or better Corsi. O'Connor's line, I think, was an even 8-8. Crosby's line, Malkin's line, and the fourth line were all underwater with shots, shot attempts, and scoring chances. And it wasn't like Winnipeg was a house of fire on Friday. This team's problems continue, and there is clearly a dichotomy emerging within the Penguins' internal structure. Some players taking it very hard. Rickard Rakell taking it very hard. You saw on the ice his facial expressions when he didn't beat Connor Hellebuck there in the second period. Glorious scoring opportunity. Wide open wrist shot from about 15, 20 feet, and Hellebuck just sort of grabbed it with the glove. And Rakell's face just kind of said it all. Rakell had a second poke later, whether it was late second, early third period. It doesn't really matter. And you could just see and I talked to him after the game. You know, we had a little private conversation on the record, by the way. And he was saying, yeah, when you know you're not going to get so many chances, those are magnified. I'm paraphrasing. And that's why those chances were so important to him. That maybe there's a little more pressure to convert those. I don't get that sense from everybody on the team. And that is why the Penguins are 7-11-4. Let's talk a little bit about a couple of the individual efforts from Friday night. Tristan Jarry, and by the way, we will get into Mike Sullivan. I hate to, because it's so wrought with emotion in the fan base, but we'll have to touch into it. Tristan Jarry had one of his better games. There was one goal I thought he could have played a little better, and that was the power play goal, the third one. I thought he was a little deep in the net, but otherwise hung out to dry on a couple of goals. And that was the effort by Erik Karlsson on the second goal, to speak to the veterans letting the team down aspect. Sidney Crosby, a blast from the mid-wall, not an ideal shot. He's got to keep that low. He's got to plow it into traffic looking for a deflection rather than hitting the glass behind the net. But Erik Karlsson had skated low in the zone to make that pass over to Crosby, but he kind of went back on his heels in the corner and watched the shot, took a swat at it, slow to transition as the puck goes past him. Now, once the puck goes past the defenseman who would come deep in the zone, guess what is going to happen? Exactly. An odd man rush. Unfortunately, you can see in the highlights, or lowlights if you choose to watch them, Karlsson not hustling to get back. I probably don't need to say any more about that. But Jarry had one of his better games. I think he was a little cheesed at being hung out to dry. In fairness, he's hung his team out to dry a few times this season too. So teams, win or lose as a team, and this was a night that the goalie gave them a chance to win, but the team clearly did not. Now let's touch on the Mike Sullivan thing. And I've written a lot about it in the last couple of days. I hope I have been accurate, but also very fair as to the situation. Sullivan and I had a little tiff after the game. Tiff might be the wrong word, but certainly he was not amused by my question, which was simply 6 times this season the first shot on goal has gone in. What did he think of that? What are the causes? What does he think of the causes? Now, Tristan Jarry slammed the team, saying we need to be ready to play in the first 5 minutes. We need to defend harder. Fair question. I thought Sullivan might give me the same answer, but Sullivan kind of turned it back on me, saying, "Can you explain it? Can you?" I can't. He said I can't. And my impression was he can't explain it because he doesn't want to just rip Erik Karlsson into pieces. Didn't want to rip Evgeny Malkin into pieces. And he knew in that moment, because of the question, because of the situation, because that first goal was so ungodly terrible, that to answer it would have been to do that. I've got thick skin. Mike Sullivan has given me some wonderful answers this season, explaining things like that Michael Bunting defensive systems questions. It does speak, though. This team is in trouble. They're back at it again Saturday night against Utah. The Utah somethings, the Yetis, the Yodas, whatever they're going to choose to call themselves. Their first visit to Pittsburgh. Okay, so that is it from PPG Paints Arena. Like, subscribe, please, and thanks. I'm Dan Kingerski on the Pittsburgh Hockey Now YouTube channel.